Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are getting into James Tynion's Batman run. And at the end of the video, we're going to talk about Punchline. A lot of you guys have been asking about her. We don't really have any information on her, right? But a lot of you guys have been asking, so I figured I would title this, Punchline, the Joker's new girlfriend. But she's had some scant appearances. And from what I understand, she's not really going to be a major player in Batman comics until we get to the Joker War. But you guys have been asking about her. You've been asking me to dump some information on her. So at the end of the video, I'll give you guys what we have. In any event, here's the thing about James Tynion's run, right? And this is one of the things to kind of be weary of when it comes to stories, right? James Tynion's Batman run is amazing so far, but so is Tom King's. And the issue is that by the time you got to the end of Tom King's run, it really kind of just seemed to be an exercise in self-indulgence with a great big huge story that really just didn't go anywhere. It's possible Tynion's run could go in that direction. We don't really know yet. But the cool thing about this is that Tynion is writing Batman the way he's been writing Detective Comics, which is awesome because his run on Detective Comics is amazing. Like it's ridiculously good. I feel like it's one of the unsung heroes of like DC right now, right? Like it's a super good story. But what this does is it initially picks up seemingly with a kind of coming together of various villains, right? But the first person we really pick up here with is a character by the name of Cheshire. Now Cheshire is a long-standing enemy of the Teen Titans. The funny thing about Cheshire is she's unique and really in comparison to a lot of the different like mercenaries and villains who are out there, right? Because when you look at the people who are here, you have like Mr. Teeth, which we'll talk about him here in a little bit. You've got Malcolm Merlyn, kind of the antithesis of Green Arrow in the Green Arrow comics. You've got Gunsmith, who's actually a pretty cool character in and of himself. And then of course you have a fifth person here. We'll find out who they are here in a second. But Cheshire, among all the various contract killers out there, is unique because of the fact that basically her hair, her fingernails, things like that, are all tainted with different poisons, right? So like at any point in time, she could scratch you and you could die from like the venom of an asp snake, or in this instance where she killed the doorman, the venom of what was basically a box jellyfish. Like these things are cool, right? It's one of the things that makes her really intriguing and really interesting, but it makes her difficult to capture, right? Because she's like a tree frog, right? Like an Amazonian tree frog. The entirety of her body is basically a giant poison. And so if you were to touch her, you were to grab her hair, or you were to be scratched by her nails, or bit by her, or something like that, or even possibly touch her skin, you could die. And so it's interesting. Like she's really intriguing in that way. But what this also does is it kind of switches over to Catwoman. Now, here's one of the cool things here, right, with Selina Kyle. This is one of the things that I love about what Tynion's doing that Tom King did differently. Whenever Tom King had like Batman and Catwoman talking, it just didn't sound natural, right? It was like watching an Alan Sorkin show, right? So like The Newsroom or like The West Wing, where people have conversations, but no one really talks like that in real life. And it kind of removed you from the comic, right? Like nobody talks that way, like when they would communicate and things like that. Tynion does a really, really good job of having discussions between characters, and it really just kind of feels organic, the way that Selina Kyle and Batwoman talk. It's not the most important thing out there, but it is kind of a cool thing. The other part of this that you really end up learning here is that Bruce Wayne is kind of going, or at least Batman's going headlong into the notion of like developing Gotham City, right? He's going into the notion of like developing Gotham and just making it a better place, as opposed to I'm running around as Batman and I'm beating up criminals in the middle of the night like I'm some kind of a schizophrenic, and that's my shtick, that's my thing, right? Like he's actually working to improve Gotham more so than he ever did before. And in fact, Tynion will kind of address this unlike years past. But the cool thing is that what he ends up doing is really kind of having this conversation with Lucius Fox, right? Where Batman is in the midst of developing this, not really a Batmobile, but not really a Batwing, kind of a blend between the two to a degree, which is somewhat of an interesting idea. But the big takeaway from this is he basically says that about 5 days prior on the dark web, that the Batcomputer picked up a message that was sent out and then deleted 3 minutes later. And what this basically did was kind of send out a message to 5 of the most capable assassins out there in the world, and basically said, meet in Gotham City on this day and we're going to complete a mission. And that basically Deathstroke is the one who's leading them. And this is an interesting thing here because Batman really sort of analyzes all the villains who were there, and it's just kind of like, okay, each one of these guys are interesting, Mr. Teeth and Gunsmith and Cheshire and so on, but the only person that I'm really worried about here is Deathstroke, because for Deathstroke it's about the money but also about the principle. If somebody's going to hire him for a job, it has to be worth doing, right? Because Deathstroke has enough money, so it's one of these things where he doesn't really need the cash. Is it worth my while to even take this job job in the first place, which he can kind of command, right? He's like the premier assassin in DC Comics. So like if you really want somebody to die, Deathstroke's the guy you get a hold of. So it's kind of interesting. And so because of this, Batman's essentially planned for a lot of these villains to take them down, but also realizes that Deathstroke's mind operating as fast as it does, and in fact, this kind of established here 9 times faster than the average man, means that Batman has to act and then respond in really an exceedingly short amount of time. Otherwise, Deathstroke will mentally get the upper hand. And this is an important thing because what it shows here is that while Bruce Wayne doesn't really consider Deathstroke to be an equal, he does consider Deathstroke to be somebody worth worrying about. And Deathstroke is in a lot of ways an equal to Batman, not, strictly in terms of fighting, but in terms of his ingenuity, how his mind works, his ability to comprehend and understand situations, to get in and out of different scenarios as fast as possible. I mean, for God's sake, the guy was facing off against Superman and just threw like glowing green rocks at him and tricked Superman into thinking it was kryptonite, right? So like small little things like that are what really make Deathstroke unique and intriguing here. And so of course, Batman executes this plan and basically, throws out what are called the Bat Shadow Casters. And what these are designed to do is basically kind of emit a shadow that more or less follows these various villains around and then tricks them into believing they're leading Batman into a trap, right? Where they can somehow take him out, when in reality, he's not there. Now, of course, going toe-to-toe against Deathstroke is a cool thing to see. With Deathstroke being there, him and Batman facing off against each other, it's largely been established multiple times over DC Comics that sometimes the battle can actually go either way. That sometimes Deathstroke can win because of his super soldier enhancements. Sometimes Batman can win because Batman's just the best fighter in DC Comics. But regardless, basically what Deathstroke says here is like, you fighting me, this is the distraction. This is part of the big plan, right? Like this is all going the way it's supposed to. And Batman's response is, I know exactly what's going on. Like I know what it is that you're trying to do. And that's what we basically pick up with Catwoman, who followed a guy down into this kind of sub-basement with all this information where the plans of Bruce Wayne in fixing Gotham City and kind of what it is that he wants to do with the city as a whole are intending to be replaced with a new set of designs by a person called the Designer. And the cool thing about this is that when this happens, when this goes down and Catwoman confronts this guy, ultimately he's just kind of like, you have to stop this guy. Like I don't care what you have to do, but you have to stop this guy's plans from coming to fruition. After which this guy immediately begins to die, kind of breaking down and so on. But a disembodied voice seemingly starts to kind of come out of this guy's body and basically saying, like, Catwoman, I see you, I know you're here. You have to understand this plan that was concocted some time ago that you were a part of, it's now coming to fruition, right? The Designer is coming for Gotham City. And Catwoman immediately picks up on what's going on. And so what this does is it hits back to this idea that somewhere along the line, in part of the history of Gotham City, which we haven't really known about before, that Catwoman seemingly made a deal or made some kind of a bargain with this Designer guy, but we don't really know how far this goes, right? Just kind of hitting at this idea that there's some pretty clandestine stuff going on. But the cool thing about this is that this rabbit hole goes down pretty far, and we'll find out how far it goes. But what this does is it jumps to Batman, who basically jumps on his communicator and says, Alfred, send a priority signal to the Gotham City Police Department. And this is cool because my initial thought was, oh my God, Gotham's back. But it's interesting to see Tynion kind of picking up on what it is that Tom King did and continuing that continuity, because Alfred's dead. And that's where Lucius chimes in and says, Alfred isn't here anymore, man. Like Alfred's gone, Batman. And Batman slipped, right? He knew that Alfred was gone, but it was just one of these things where he's so used to doing it. It's crushing for him to have to admit that Alfred's not here. And he actually just kind of, seems to cry. I mean, some of it seems like rain, but I would say Batman kind of seems to cry in response to this. And so as a result, he basically tells Lucius, grab that ship thing, we'll grab the villains and we'll take them off. And that'll basically be the end of that. And so what you basically end up doing is you end up jumping to Riddler, who's having a conversation with the Penguin. Of course, the Penguin killing various people who were there. And this is when things get cool, because what the Riddler says is, I've been watching everything that's been going on with Gotham City. I've been watching all these things take place, so on and so forth. And like the Designer is coming to town, right? The Designer is here in Gotham City. The response of Penguin is, yeah, I know. And I've taken out anybody who knows what it is that I've been doing, right? Who knows about my plans or anything like that. Literally, all the villains are basically cleaning house. Whoever this Designer is, whoever this guy is here, whatever it is he's capable of and whatever he's about, is scaring the hell out of the villains, right? It's scaring them enough to where Penguin is killing off his henchmen, so there's no one there to drop any information, and the Riddler's scared out of his wits, right? The Riddler's just like, dude, this guy is no joke. And so it's kind of crazy because, we've seen things with like Bane taking over Gotham City, so on and so forth. The difference between this, the way this is going down and what Tom King did is that in this story, you feel the stakes. You're like, okay, so like something's getting ready to pop off in Gotham. Something really bad is getting ready to happen. But that's the thing is the Riddler's response is like, the Designer is coming to collect. The Designer is coming for all of us as the villains. And Penguin's response is, he can try. And so this is when things get interesting because from there, you pick up with the various villains, of course, who have essentially been apprehended by Batman. And what you learn is you have this place called the Black Block. And the Black Block is basically this prison that's designed to hold people that are escape dangers. Now, the reason why this is awesome, and this is an amazing invention by James Tynion, because I'm pretty sure he's the one who made it. When you look at the Batman mythos and you look at like Arkham Asylum, Arkham is for the most part a revolving door, right? Like Two-Face or Penguin or Joker or any number of those guys, Riddler, Mad Hatter, whoever, you know, the Mr. Freeze, they're busted by Batman, and then it's only a matter of time before they escape from Arkham. In order to avoid this, what Batman had done, working alongside Lucius Fox and really even the Gotham City Police Department, was create the Black Block as a place where escaping criminals, right? So like Bane and Joker, people like that who present a clear and present danger to Gotham City itself, could be held and detained. You basically got 10 feet of cement, which is lined with concrete. The idea is that like no one can get out of here, right? Like once you're in, you're in. And there's only two ways in and out of this whole Black Block. The first one is basically a DNA encoded set of keys that are only used by Gotham City Police Department. And the second one is an interest that only Batman knows about. And so when Batman gets in there and starts talking to Deathstroke, Deathstroke is immediately like, hey man, like, you know, I'm not going to tell you who it was that hired me, so don't waste your time. The other people don't know, so they can't tell you. But here's the thing. One, I'm going to break out of here, right? Like, I'm not going to be in here forever. This is a cool little game you're playing, and I like that you believe you can hold me. It's cute, but understand, I'm Deathstroke, right? Like, I will get out of this place. And then two, this is a game that you're playing. It's interesting to watch you play this game because you're going to lose, and it's going to be fun to watch you fail. But this is a game that you will not win. So wish me luck when I get out of here. And that's when Batman basically tells Bullock, who's basically operating as a commissioner, presumably because of the events of the Batman Who Laughs and the fact that Commissioner Gordon is basically there with the Batman Who Laughs as part of his, you know, evil group or whatever, his evil Justice League. Who cares? Nobody's reading that anymore. The thing is, like, when he basically has the cell of Cheshire opened up, Batman rubs her face and then realizes that it's clay, that it's a body double, right? Like, it's not actually Cheshire herself. And so immediately goes on the defensive with Lucius, says, find Cheshire, track her down. They successfully do. They end up locating her. And then one of the most crazy things to come out of this, in this Batwing, you know, ship thing that Bruce Wayne has, he shoots himself out of the railgun. He literally shoots himself out of the railgun in order to track her down as fast as possible, because of the fact that the buildings she's traveling between are too narrow for him to just like swoop down and pick her up with like some kind of a chain and then do like he did in Detective Comics number 27, where he just hangs her and it's just like, she's better off this way. But nonetheless, you know, jumping out of here, or at least when Cheshire makes her move to try to take out Bruce Wayne, and then immediately goes to basically dig her nails into his skin, that the intention is that he's going to end up dying from whatever poison he's exposed to. Now, of course, this leads to basically Cheshire being hit by a truck while Batman slides underneath it. And while it's not enough to kill her, it is enough to incapacitate her. And then, of course, Batman reveals that he basically had a kind of membrane in his suit that essentially absorbed the poison. So, you know, Batman's plot armor strikes again. But then at that moment, suddenly Deathstroke and all of his guys escape from the facility. And that's when we basically end up finding out here that what was going on is that Penguin basically made his move, right? Penguin had jumped in here, and Penguin was the one who freed all of these guys. He's the one that got them all out of there, which is kind of a cool thing to see. And so then what you do is you basically jump to the Riddler having a conversation with Catwoman. The Catwoman's basically made her way to a cemetery after that, you know, conversation with the one guy who she believed to have been dead. Ends up having a conversation with her and basically saying, hey, I haven't used this line for quite some time, but you have to understand, we all made a deal with the designer. We made a deal with him, and he's coming to collect. So you, me, anybody who was involved with that, we're all either going to die or we're going to have to play ball. The indication is that the designer is going to kill them all, right? That's the indication. He's going to kill all the villains of Batman. That's why this is so cool, right? Because the stakes feel so intense, right? It's just like, dude, all the villains of Batman are going to die. And it sucks, especially for Catwoman, because she's a good guy now. And it's one of the things that's really kind of communicated here when it comes to Riddler, is he says, the whole reason why we got together with the designer was to commit, quote unquote, the perfect crime. But basically, you know, house is being cleaned by all of us. Me as the Riddler, I never really had henchmen, so I don't really have to worry about that. I'm basically gonna, like, I'm getting out of here, like I'm jumping ship. The Penguin cleaned house on his end. We have to assume that if there are any other villains that are involved, they've done the exact same thing as well. But the belief of Catwoman is that the Joker's somehow involved here. And so, of course, traveling to the cemetery, this is done for the intention of finding the casket of the Joker, which she does. He's basically laying down inside this casket. Now, for those of you guys who are unsure, or who are kind of looking at this, like, when did the Joker die? This basically appeared to have happened back in Batman issue number 49 by Tom King as part of the lead up to the wedding that never happened between Batman and Catwoman. And there was kind of like this Killing Joke moment, right? Where Catwoman and Joker got into a fight, and then she slashed his throat with her claws. And then they had this great big huge long, conversation basically, which Tom King did with unnecessarily with a lot of situations. But basically at the end of it, Joker seemingly died, right? He's just kind of seemed to have been dead ever since. Now, continuity wise, I don't know how that fits into Doomsday Clock. I don't think DC knows. I don't think they really care enough to figure it all out. But the long and short of it is that at the moment right now, all indications are that the Joker's dead, right? So the question becomes, if the Joker's dead, then how is his disembodied voice communicating with anybody who's out there, right? Or seemingly communicating with her, at least as Catwoman believed. And so the other part of this is, of course, Batman, essentially apprehending Cheshire, is then contacted by Lucius Fox, who gives him one of the coolest inventions ever. What he basically says is that inside of your utility belt is a device called the Echo. And what the Echo does is it basically allows you to attach it to any vehicle that's out there, which in turn will hack into the Wayne Enterprises components within the car, and then basically allow the car's appearance to change. It creates a kind of hologram, but it'll make any car look like a Batmobile, and then it'll allow it to drive as fast as the Batmobile, which is cool, because basically what this means is that Batman's got a Batmobile in his pocket, right? Like at any point in time, he can just slap this thing onto a car and then drive off. Now, Batman's response is like, you want me to jack a car and then turn it into a Batmobile and then drive? And Lucius is like, well, it's my car, so you're fine. But nonetheless, the funny thing is that, kind of switching back to Catwoman, in the midst of this whole thing where she kind of comes to frustration with the fact that, one, the Riddler basically says, I'm cutting this line now, I'm leaving. There'll be no more communication between you and me. Good luck with the designer. Hopefully you get out in time, but understand that you're probably going to have to break this news to Batman, something that, it's this kind of ultimate betrayal, more or less, that you committed against him without him really knowing. She's also met with the arrival of these two kind of henchmen of sorts, who basically show up and then essentially, almost kind of knock her out or knock her unconscious, and then start burying her there along with the Joker, and so of course, picking up with the Penguin, the Penguin basically there with Deathstroke and all those guys is kind of like, look, like, here's the deal. I'm skipping town, right? Like, I'm getting out of here. I don't want to have anything to do with the designer. I know the designer was the one that hired you guys. I will pay you double your rate if you guys leave Gotham, and then you guys sign a non-compete clause. Basically, you won't return to Gotham within a calendar year. And the response of Deathstroke is, you couldn't afford my price, right? So you can't even afford double my price. And then in turn, intends to go and kill the Penguin, only for Batman to basically show up. And then of course, he's kind of told, hey man, just so you know, like, attaching the Echo to any car does not give you the kind of armor that the Batmobile has. So just keep that in mind, man. It's just a hologram, right? So if they shoot you, you're probably gonna die if you get shot in like the jaw or something like that, somewhere where your armor doesn't protect you. But for the most part, the various henchmen who are here are overtaken like that, right? I mean, they're for the most part taken out quick, fast, and in a hurry by Batman, at which point the, Deathstroke responds, stop. Like, if you keep fighting, I'm gonna kill the Penguin. And so it's cool because Malcolm Merlyn grabs Cheshire, the villains make their escape, and Deathstroke slices the throat of the Penguin. And it's, dude, like, when this happened, I was like, holy cow, dude, like, dude, is the Penguin gonna die? The classic villains of Batman are basically being killed off, so of course this leads to Deathstroke making the smart move. It's the smartest move for him to make, right? Knowing Batman as he knows him, he knows that Batman will not let the Penguin die, right? Batman, despite all the glitz and glamour and all the stuff that he does, is a champion of life, right? So he's not going to let the Penguin die. And so Deathstroke knows this, and he essentially says, you have one of two choices. Either you can come after us and you can let the Penguin die, or you can save Penguin. But we know you're not going to let him die. We know how this game's going to play out. We'll see you when we see you. We're going to go after our targets. And basically they end up leaving while Batman goes to save Penguin himself. And so with that going down, the Penguin in turn spills the beans and basically says, years ago, right? You never knew about this. Nobody ever told you, but years ago, myself, Joker, Catwoman, like Riddler, the underworld essentially united to commit the perfect crime. And the perfect crime was to take out Bruce Wayne, right? To ally ourselves with the designer, and the designer's goal was to take out Bruce Wayne. That these guys here, right? These, Deathstroke and all those guys, they're there to take out false targets. The way this looks like it was supposed to go down is that Batman was not supposed to know what was actually going on, that instead you'd have these criminals who showed up here, they would take out false targets, Batman would chase around, try to figure out what's going on, and the designer instead would basically take out the plans of Bruce Wayne to destroy what it is that he wanted to do with Gotham City itself. The other indication here is that if the designer is looking to take out Bruce Wayne, that would seem arbitrary, right? Like, I mean, he's just a really rich guy as far as the world's concerned. All anybody, aside from the Justice League and the individuals who know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Bruce Wayne is just a really rich guy who's trying to make Gotham better, seemingly. The indication here is the designer knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Like that kind of seems to be what the case is. Now, there, you know, it's cool to see that, because then you switch over, of course, to Catwoman, and Catwoman basically kind of digs herself out. You know, she's like, I'm not gonna die here. Like, I'm not gonna die buried alive in a grave with the Joker's corpse. Like, that's ridiculous. You know, she kind of ends up jumping out, and then, of course, is saved by none other than Harley Quinn, which is kind of crazy, because it's like, why in the heck is Harley Quinn even here? Which is kind of nuts. Now, of course, from there, the Penguin is basically dropped off at like a Gotham City hospital by Batman. Literally, Batman grabbed the Penguin, drove to this location out of the vehicle, left him on the steps of the hospital, and was like, I got stuff to do, and then left. Which is kind of screwed up. But Batman ends up going after these false targets, right? Now, this is important, because what this shows is Batman is trying to do it all, right? Now, the reality is Batman wouldn't let the false targets die, right? That was the whole message of the Penguin. You know, Gunsmith and Mr. Teeth and Cheshire and Deathstroke, you know, so on. You know, they're gonna go after the false targets and they're gonna kill them, right? So innocent people are basically going to die if Batman chose not to go after these guys. And that's kind of the danger of all this, right? Like, the designer really seems to be orchestrating things in such a way to where Batman's being pushed to his limits. And in a lot of ways he is, because this comes hot off the heels of everything that just happened with City of Bane, the death of Alfred, and all that kind of stuff, right? And so kind of going after the gunsmith, we sort of get a rundown on this guy. This guy's name is Douglas Worth. And basically he was a veteran, you know, of half a dozen military contractors, as is explained by James Tynion, and then ultimately was fired from each and every one for using experimental weapons in the field without any kind of approval whatsoever. But the reason why he got his name is that basically he kind of fashioned a silencer out of different things that he found from an electronics store, and then killed a guy on a plane that was full of people, and no one knew that he did it, right? So he was just that capable. But the issue is that at the end of the day, despite the, you know, his capabilities with fashioning, you know, weapons seemingly out of just arbitrary components, kind of being like this MacGyver sort of situation, he's no match for Batman, right? So he's taken out with a quickness, right? I mean, that happens quick, fast, and in a hurry. Following that is Mr. Teeth. And Mr. Teeth sort of gained his name because of the fact that what he was doing was going through and killing people, and then surgically removing the teeth from their mouth, and then surgically putting them inside their stomachs, right? Now, why he was doing that, we don't know. Probably because he's just crazy as hell. But of course, he's taken out by Batman as well with a quickness, right? The other thing behind this is that they're currently, you know, he's currently in the lair of the Riddler. And so the indication seems to be here that these 5 guys were basically tasked with tracking down the classic villains of Batman: Catwoman, the Riddler, Penguin, or presumably Two-Face, the Joker. You know, these major members of the criminal underworld, they're each going to take out one of them. And of course, Mr. Teeth was here to take out the Riddler. And so with Mr. Teeth being removed from the equation, this in turn allows Batman to basically analyze the only real footage left there by Riddler by Edward Nygma, which was done, of course, intentionally for Batman to follow up on. And it's cool to see that James Tynion does this, right? It's cool to see him look at this and say, okay, let's still maintain this role of the Riddler. What Edward Nygma was doing is that when he was confronted by the designer, he was making a series of hand gestures. And these hand gestures were essentially, you know, a riddle, more or less. On a keyboard of sorts, they were more or less a riddle. And Batman understanding and deciphering this, you know, picking up this riddle is basically the question: what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in midday, and 3 legs in the evening? And the response to Lucian Fox is, well, man, I have no idea how that makes sense. But of course, you know, Batman figuring it out basically says, okay, this essentially grants them access to the computer systems, which basically shows them that the Riddler was running a track that nobody else was, right? That Batman wasn't or anybody else wasn't, which was on Deathstroke. And so that, of course, gives them the location of Deathstroke, which Batman, you know, sends out his little bat drones in order to track him down. But what this does is that from here, it switches directly over to Batman and to Catwoman, you know, Catwoman and Harley Quinn showing up. And then Catwoman basically saying, like, we need to talk, like, we need to have a conversation. I need to tell you about all of these things. You know, that it's a guy called the Designer, that he's basically here. Now, Batman, for the most part, knows what the Penguin told him, but he doesn't really know everything. And so it's at this point when Catwoman apologizes that we get into essentially the new girlfriend of the Joker. A lot of you guys have been asking about this. A lot of you guys have been asking me questions. What's going on with the girlfriend of the Joker? This is all we have, right? This is it. It's basically just a girl who calls the Joker and is just like, hey, they've seen the grave, but their attention's been drawn elsewhere. And the Joker's response is, okay, like, I have something else to attend to, right? Like, I mean, I have other people to talk to before this goes down. This is it, guys. Like, this is all we have with the girlfriend of the Joker. I don't really understand why people are freaking out over it. I mean, I get it insofar as it's the Joker's new girlfriend, but aside from this and like an appearance in Hell Arisen, there's nothing else here, right? Like, she's not going to be a major player until April or May when it comes to Joker War. All we're going to get is these little teaser one-page moments, and that's basically going to be it, right? So this is kind of strange to me, you know, in terms of people getting super hyped up and everybody asking me about it, right? It's like people who are asking me to explain the One Below All on Marvel Comics. We don't know enough. We can't explain it because we don't know enough, and we don't really know anything about her. All we know is that she's just a character who's there, and that's basically it. But the big takeaway from all this is the Joker is alive, right? The Joker's very much alive. We don't really know how, but the Joker is very much alive. Maybe he's one of the 3 mysterious Jokers, and that's essentially it. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.